Hey there, Starship here. Welcome to another episode of Exploring 1.30, where we take a look at strategies that have either been enabled or enhanced by the new patch. Today's game is going to be a ladder game featuring myself as the Orange Night Elf and Red Bull as the random player who randomed undead. Red Bull, aka Johnny Cage, the Russian player. His main race is human, but his ladder account, Red Bull, is mainly random. And I think he's about rank 10 with about 80% win rate with random, so very, very strong random player. Perhaps the best random player in Europe right now. Certainly putting in the games for it. But since he's random, I'm doing a very quick scout, which I like to do against random to quickly figure out what race I'm playing against. And I see that there's a necropolis being built and a crypt. So this is a very strange build order. Usually this implies some kind of fast tech strategy from the undead.
Your building is complete.
And this map, Trisfall Glaives, the latter version, is notoriously, I'd say, imbalanced and kind of silly because of these mercenary camps. Just going to pause the game real quick. You can buy the Murloc mercenary with Ensnare, and you can buy the assassin with poisoned attack and hide. So basically, if you just pull these creeps, get a Murloc and an assassin, you can get guaranteed kills right away. And this benefits every race really, but I feel like undead gets the worst of it, because a lot of the times they have a difficult time getting these creeps. The Death Knight can't heal them, and so forth. So I think this quick tech, something I've met before on this map. It seems like a response to this map being kind of silly. So you try to just be very quick in your tech and very defensive to resist these mercenaries early on. Meanwhile, I'm going for the Priestess of the Moon first. I've just been experimenting a lot with this hero. One of my favorites. And I'm just trying it in all the matchups. And I'm not getting any buildings except for the Moonwell so far, because I do want to pull these mercenaries. A lot of the times I go Keeper of the Grove against undead. But in this situation, because you can get the ensnare from the mercenaries, which I'm going to do over here, I feel like Entangle isn't that important. So I'm just going to pull these creeps.
Your building is complete.
And run in with my hero to get the Murloc and the assassin.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
And during this time I did put an Ancient War. I like doing that if I'm fast scouting, and especially against this type of build order. Forcing him to allocate these ghouls to destroy my ancient instead of getting lumber seems like a really good deal for me. So he's at 154 wood right now, and I'm just trying to abuse as much as I can, making sure that the ghouls can't attack me all at once. Just trying to keep this ancient war alive as long as possible. Meanwhile, I'm just running in here, thinking I can get an ensnare focus fire combination off. There we go. There's ensnare. Here's the assassin and my priestess. Getting aura first is really nice here because it pretty much adds as much damage as the searing arrow, since I have 2 ranged units, but doesn't cost any mana. There's a cold tower, so you have to be careful. And there is a Death Knight. I was a bit worried this might be a Dreadlord, so I'm kind of cautious here, but it is a Death Knight. And I feel like I can just kind of back off and bide my time. And during this, I am planting a Tree of Life. I'm getting Hunter's Hall, and I'm going to go for double Ancient War. Red Bull here throws a Death Coil, and it's actually quite smart. You can't ensnare heroes with this creep, this mercenary. So this is pretty much a guaranteed kill by just throwing coils at it. And if I don't have ensnare, I'm all of a sudden a lot less scary. So he does get the last hit there. Attempt to block the Death Knight here, but it doesn't really work that well. And I also have to be careful with this assassin, because it can also get sniped with coil if I'm not careful.
Your building is complete.
So this damage Death Knight goes to hide at the fountain, which is actually very strong on this map. Like, I thought I could just wake up the creeps and they'd attack the Death Knight, but it doesn't really work. If you stand at the far back, I can even pause. You can do the same thing. If you stand at the far back, you can pretty much heal, even though your opponent wakes up the creeps. So very, very strong tool for the undead player in this situation to just get that free healing. And I'm sending my assassin to the other fountain. Don't want to lose that one for nothing. So my opponent here, Red Bull, is teching, getting the graveyard. Very late shop. A lot of ghouls. And that second necropolis is very safe against Acolyte Harass. He does scout the Tree of Life here, which is scary for me.
Your building is complete.
Because I don't really have a lot of units right now. I'm at 22 supply. My opponent's at 26. I'm very slowly getting punches out. I do have my assassin, but it's a pretty tough camp. There's the 2 assassins and the... For some reason I can't click on it, but the level 5 creep as well. So a lot of HP in those creeps, a lot of DPS, which makes creeping that expansion a bit annoying. If you get creep jacked, you could even lose your expansion. So just trying to save my wisps here, dodging coils with moonwells. And this Death Knight just barely goes down. There's some focus fire there, and I can cancel the moonwells. Since I am teching, I don't want to lose too many wisps for nothing. So at this point, I know the Death Knight's dead. So I feel pretty safe to creep this expansion. But again, if all these ghouls were to show up, they could do some serious damage here against my my tree. And if you see a fast attacking undead and you're going huntresses, you're automatically going to be worried about gargoyles, but we don't see any gargoyles here. Instead we see a Temple of the Damned from Red Bull, and a Slaughterhouse, and a couple of fiends even. So ghouls, fiends, Slaughterhouse, Temple of the Damned, and second hero is going to be the Pitlord. So this is a very, very strange build order. But as we'll see as this game keeps going, it's going to prove to be a very powerful strategy that Red Bull is doing in this new patch as undead. I actually don't see this, which is kind of unfortunate for me. So I just barely see the Death Knight here, but it's very easy to miss this when you're not paying attention. So he's stealing my creeps. I'm pretty much going to do the same thing, except I'm not really aware that he's stealing mine until it turns day. And I do get the Alchemist second. I feel like he's pretty much essential if you're playing Night Elf without rejuvenation, because you only have so much healing with your moonwells. So getting that heal spray, I feel, is essential. And also Acid Bomb has great synergy with huntresses with the bouncing attacks. So it's just a solid pick overall. In this game I'm going Owl Scout. Whether you go Owl Scout or Searing Arrows, it's pretty much a matter of taste. Like I said before, I was very worried of gargoyles, and against gargoyles it's very nice to have this owl following them around, giving you vision over trees to make them a bit less versatile. Force a town portal here by threatening a creep jack, but Red Bull's probably pretty happy with this. He got my mercenary camp, he got his expansion, even though his army is probably not going to be able to win a fight against me. So kind of getting those sneaky creep spots in is just a good thing for the undead here. And since he just town portal, I figure I can take his creeps. And he instead decides to go for his green ones. And interestingly enough, Red Bull here is staying tier 2. So it's just statues, necromancers, ghouls, fiends, Death Knight, Pitlord, and no tier 3 tech so far. We do have adept training for the necromancers. Obviously we can't get master because we're still tier 2, but this adept upgrade does mean that we can see Unholy Frenzy. And I did another exploring 1.30 where we saw Unholy Frenzy being used. This is going to be another game where we see kind of the power of Unholy Frenzy. And in this situation, it's going to be in conjunction with the new Cleave attack. So this Pitlord does have Cleave, it has Howl and Cleave, and it has now Unholy Frenzy. And even this level 1 Cleave, you can see it's dishing out a lot of damage here. This Pitlord is very scary. And I just feel like I have to town portal here. I try to snipe these necromancers. I just barely get both of them, but he was doing a good job microing, so I had to tank portal there.
Goddess, light my path.
And my reaction to seeing necromancers, I'll just pause the game real quick, because my intention with this build order against undead in general is to just make a lot of huntresses and archers, perhaps throw in some dryads, maybe late game go for chims. But upon seeing this kind of necromancer based army, I do add this Ancient of Wind so I can get fairy dragons, and I figure I might as well get some talons with it, and I'll go for a mix of huntresses, mercenaries, talons, and fairy dragons. Here's the heal spray being utilized, and as you can see, I really don't have a whole lot of moon juice. And this is why I feel it's so important to have that heal spray as Night Elf, which is kind of a shame because I feel it's like a forced choice here. Like if I don't pick the Alchemist, I could very well have a lot of issues in the late game where I just can't heal my army. So I feel like the Alchemist is pretty much a must pick, which is a bit of a shame. Do not want to fight uphill here. My opponent did steal the creeps. That's double level 3. But there's some good use for Owl Scout here. If I turn on Fog of War, it's a good way to see that your opponent isn't standing on the high ground, and I can freely walk above. Also a good way to scout expansions. So I must admit that when I was playing this game, I definitely underestimated my opponent's strategy at this point. I felt like I have an expansion, I have some strong heroes, I have a lot of units getting pumped out, and I feel like these Moonglaive Huntresses and these Assassins are going to do a lot of damage, especially with Fairy Fire. Like, I'm not too worried, but we're going to see this game becomes a lot more even than I ever thought it would be with this very unusual strategy. So Red Bull here has done a good job of like pretty much stealing a lot of creeps that I shouldn't have let him to steal, especially with the fact that I have Owl Scout. So sneaking in a lot of experience there just from the creeps and getting some good items as well. Decides to sell the I forgot what that was, but has the flute and has the claws of attack, and both of those are pretty good with this army. So another big fight. Illusions are thrown in here to just kind of confuse him and soak up some DPS. I do have the Wand of the Wind, which is great here. I can keep the Pitlord in the air as well as the Death Knight and try to go for the army instead. So Acid Bomb being used, trying to focus as much as I can, and oh, that was a huge howl. All of these units are affected. Pretty much just negating my Priestess Aura. And there are a lot of skeletons coming out here. Another Unholy Frenzy on the Pitlord. Look at that DPS. And this is level 2 Howl, I'm pretty sure. Level 2 Cleave, sorry. So a very huge area here from the Pitlord. And everything's just going down for me. All these skeletons are firing, and I feel like I gotta back up. I do get the Pitlord. He does have a no mobility potion, but I don't think Red Bull had the time to use it. And yeah, I mean, everything's dropping kind of low, and there's a lot of summons here. I buy a heal scroll to stay in this fight a little longer, but I am giving a lot of experience to my opponent here by just losing stuff to all these skeletal mages and skeletal warriors. So I end up running away. And at the end of this fight, I'm down to 54 supply. My opponent's at 45. I was way ahead at the start of it.
Our warriors have
I had some great items, that Wand of the Wind being used very efficiently, but still, I took a heavy beating in that fight. And during this time, the Undead has built an expansion.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
Now obviously the biggest issue for me here is I didn't have any wisps, and I had yet to build any fairy dragons. But now I'm putting a lot of wisps, and I'm also making a lot of wisps to make sure I always have enough to detonate. You want to detonate skeletons, you want to detonate necromancers and statues and heroes. Just get rid of all the summons and all the mana. If I just put on Fog of War, I don't believe I've actually... Here I go. Here's the first time I actually scout this expansion. And this sets off an alarm bell. You don't want to fight on even economy against an undead.
Warriors have engaged the enemy.
And when you're doing this kind of mass hunt strategy. So I'm going for the creeps up here. Opponent's just kind of playing defensively here. He knows that I've seen the expansion. He has to be kind of careful to defend it. And this is a pretty good spot. It's very choky. So if you're playing against mass hunts, and you have a Pitlord with Cleave, then you definitely want to take a fight in one of these areas. And he kind of has to wait for this hero to come back anyway, so he might as well be very defensive. So now we have double Temple of the Damned, still tier 2, and some wagons are being thrown into the mix. So Pitlord is back.
Goddess, light my path.
Got 5 necromancers here, and ghouls and crypt fiends. I mean, this Pitlord is just a great tank and a great damage dealer with Unholy Frenzy, and the Death Knight obviously keeps him alive. And there's no mana burn, so those coils are going to be flying constantly. Finally, I get some fairies. Got 80 supply, a lot of huntresses, a lot of assassins, some Druids of the Talon. Got that level 2 True Shot aura. And I believe I picked Searing Arrow instead of level 2 Scout, and here we go. Pitlord leading the charge once again. That level 2 Cleave just doing so much damage. I'm trying to counter it with level 2 Field Spray. Utilizing the Mana Flare on the Fairy Dragons, but Red Bull just backs up right away. Hitting some nice detonates on these necromancers, losing a lot of mana on them. That's looking really good for me right now. I've got 73 supply, my opponent's at 59. Utilizing some great heal sprays here. Repossessing the Fairy Dragons, but still this Unholy Frenzy on the Pitlord is doing so much damage. He's just leveling up level 4 now. Whisper trying to detonate, more howls going off. Huntresses trying to kill as much as they can, but they're slowly dropping down here. And look at this group of units just taking so much damage from the Cleave from the Pitlord. And I even had a heal spell used. I have another one on the Priestess, but things are just dying really fast here. At the same time, my opponent Red Bull here is losing a lot of units as well. Necromancers are going down, focus fire by the Priestess. We do have a level 5-4. Against 4-4, so I am ahead in experience. But this Pitlord is just constantly getting coiled, and he's doing a lot of damage. There are 2 Spirit Towers up, which pretty much counters my entire army. I cannot really stay here and fight. So I have to try and go for the Pitlord, but again he gets coiled. Nice little invulnerability potion, and there isn't actually enough mana for another coil, so Red Bull here has to back off. So he's down to 23 supply, I'm down to 55. Remember, I started at 80 in this fight. And I decided to add some glaive throwers here to deal with the Spirit Towers. And my Priestess can tank some of these shots and just kill these Acolytes. Slow down his economy a little bit. And I am ahead in experience, and this is one of the advantages, or disadvantages rather, of playing Necromancer strategies, is that if you're making a lot of skeletons, your opponent's going to get a lot of experience. Whenever I dispel all those skeletons, I mean, I'm just getting so much experience. So I was at one point like 3-2 and he was 4-4, but now I'm actually ahead in experience, so that's probably the big downside. Perhaps you don't even want to use those skeletons, maybe you just want to focus on Unholy Frenzy. So Pitlord going back into tank mode here. I'm trying to focus down the Death Knight since he can't heal himself. But there we go, I mean level 2 Howl and right clicks from this Pitlord is just doing so much damage. And there is a coil here on the Death Knight, so this Pitlord is just not going to die. Yeah, I mean, this Cleave, what can I say? It's just such a huge area. But I am slowly killing these towers during all of this. But I'm not killing units, I'm only damaging heroes, and they're just getting healed. Meanwhile, I'm taking a lot of damage, I'm even losing units. And I have no easy way of healing this right now. I only have mana for 1 more heal spray at this point. But the expansion's down, and that's the biggest win here. That was the goal of this entire push. Just get that expansion down, then I feel like I'm fine. One big mistake I'd say I did though is I didn't get any upgrades, so I'm at 0-0 with these huntresses. Especially with this Priestess Aura, it's good to get upgrades. So nearly level 5 on this Death Knight, which will make this Pitlord even more tanky, even more scary. So I decided to put some pressure on. I mean, I do have these glaive throwers, I might as well use them. There we go, another Unholy Frenzy being cast. Cleave going to work. Death Knight doesn't have enough mana at this point though. He hasn't leveled up to level 5 yet, so Red Bull needs to be a bit careful with this fight. Buys a mana potion, pretty smart choice here. I mean, these two heroes alone are going to keep Red Bull alive, not so much the army. Heal spray going off, lightning shield being cast, not that efficient. There's a lot of skeletons being made and no wisps around. I'm pretty much fighting pure mana here, just all these skeletons, and I'm losing units. I'm giving my opponent experience. Probably shouldn't stay in this fight. Both my heroes dropping pretty low. I decided to town portal out. That was a big hit. I'm down to 47 supply. My opponent has double level 5, and I mean, if this Pitlord gets level 6, that's huge. That ultimate is insane, but at the same time, so is the level 6 Alchemist, so I feel we both have a great late game potential with our heroes here. Starfall is going to be amazing as well, since there's no stun effect for my opponent. He'd have to get like a Dreadlord Third or something, or a Dark Ranger to counter it. I am banking quite heavily now, though. I feel like I have this expansion. I denied my opponent his expansion.
Goddess, light my
Might as well bank, start some upgrades finally, and here we go. Now I can start making units again. I keep going for these huntresses. I feel like they're good against the fiends, they're good against ghouls. And since you can't get these assassins, I feel like that's a better alternative than archers.
Stand and deliver.
Try to get this geomancer just to counteract the unholy frenzy. You know, if I can put slow on the Pitlord, that'll be a way to deal with his damage output a little bit.
Light my path. Our gold mine is running low.
Khadgar's demo health dropped at this red spot, so 1350 HP on this Pitlord with 4 armor. Level 5 Death Knight to back him up with Death Coils, and he's just not going to die. So I'm at 69, my opponent's at 39. I'm way ahead in supply, but this guy is just still so scary. This is pretty much a 2-man army at this point. So there is slow, and there's Unholy Frenzy, but it's still very fast attack speed. Shows you how strong Unholy Frenzy is. Unholy Terror more than counteracting my level 3 two-shot aura. Flamethrower is trying to attack the necromancers. Necromancers being macroed quite well. Pitlord just taking front and stage here. Soaking up damage, dealing a lot of damage. And despite my huge supply lead, I feel like I'm not actually winning this fight. I'm losing units, and I'm not really killing anything. So I try as best as I can to run past the Pitlord, ignore it as much as I can, and try to kill the actual units and statues that won't be as difficult to take down. I did get level 6, so I do have Starfall. Here we go. Huge Starfall being used here. There's no town portal on my opponent, there's no stun. These stars are going to fall until they stop falling pretty much. Everything being hit. My opponent could have bought a town portal. It would be very expensive, and I don't think he had the gold just when I started, so instead he has to run away. But still, both of my heroes, I mean, I had to use the Greater Healing Potion there. Alchemist is in a lot of trouble here. And Pitlord just keeps going and just doing so much damage. I thought maybe I can kill this Pitlord using my ranged attacks when the Priestess gets really close here at 35 HP.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
No mana on the Death Knight. And Unholy Frenzy's taking down the HP as well. But just in time, there's a mana potion and a coil. And I have to back off. So supply-wise, I'm 44. My opponent's 35. I mean, he's really closed the gap here. But I have been banking this time. I was below 50 for a long time.
Our warriors have engaged the enemy.
Gold mine is out. And this kind of tells me that maybe my opponent's going to try to expand again, because his gold mine's going to run out, and he might just run all these acolytes over, start an expansion. So I do want to get as many units as I can now to make sure my opponent doesn't put up that expansion too easily. Pitlord's getting dangerously close to level 6 as well. But my expansion feels pretty safe, I'd say. He doesn't have a lot of damage against buildings in this army. There's no town portal, so he has to be very careful. I get a good kind of attack from behind here with a nice acid bomb landing on everything. And again, I'm trying my best to just ignore this Pitlord, go for the units. But it's hard because, I mean, he's constantly there, he's constantly attacking me no matter what. And the area effect is so huge that it's actually difficult to avoid. But finally, acid bomb slowly taking down the life of this Death Knight goes down. And without a coil, there's no chance for the Pitlord to survive, and my opponent, Red Bull, GG's out. So I thought that was a very cool game, a very neat strategy to check out. Really showcasing the power of the new Cleave attack, and I think it's a good change. It's fun to see. I mean, historically, area of effect has always been very overestimated by the development team. It's been very underwhelming to see in an actual fight, but this new Cleave, I mean, it really does a lot of damage, and had such good synergy with Unholy Frenzy and the Death Knight keeping him alive. And there was no need for tier 3. Like, a lot of undead strategies basically rely on just rushing tier 3. And this is a cool alternative that shows that even tier 2 undead has a lot to offer with this new patch. And like, if you just look at the resources, I was so far ahead in gold, but it was still such an even fight. I mean, my opponent here never even got above 64 food. But it was still very even. And I do believe there are examples of this strategy being used against more standard strategies. I'm definitely going to check some of those replays and maybe do a commentary on those as well. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoyed the content, then feel free to subscribe and like and share and all that stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Good game.